Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thanks for holding this oversight hearing. After months of excuses and delays from Secretary Noem, we finally gathered together. When I was chair, I restored this committee's longstanding tradition of regular oversight hearings with the Secretary of Homeland Security. Today's hearing is long overdue. We are joined today by friends and family members of individuals currently in ICE detention or who have been deported. I thank them for traveling here today. Their presence is a reminder that the policies implemented by DHS under your leadership, Madam Secretary, have a devastating impact on the lives of real people. Let me also say a word of those who have been, their families have been the victim of violence by immigrants. Although immigrants as a group commit less crime than native-born Americans, there is no excuse for violence, and what you've gone through is a just terrible situation that I will willingly acknowledge. From my point of view, we need an orderly process at the border to start with. And secondly, we should never knowingly allow a dangerous person into this country. And if someone is in this country seeking citizenship and commits a crime, serious crime, they should be asked to leave or incarcerated. Bottom line, there's a way to deal with immigration that is sensible and humane on both sides. More than a dozen years ago, two members of this committee, myself and another member, worked with a bipartisan group under Senator John McCain to write a comprehensive immigration law which dealt with many of the issues we've been working on since. It passed in the United States Senate with over 60 votes, bipartisan, supported by business and labor and religious leaders across the board. Unfortunately, the Republican leadership in the House of Representatives refused to take it up. Had we passed that and made it the law of the land, we could have avoided a lot of the terrible things that have occurred since. Madam Secretary, under your leadership, the Homeland Security Department has been devoid of any moral compass or respect for the rule of law. Without hesitation or remorse, DHS agents have wreaked havoc in our cities. I've seen it in the city of Chicago, and acted with unspeakable cruelty against children, immigrant families, and American citizens. This administration's reckless immigration enforcement campaign is creating fear in communities and eroding the foundational tenets of our democracy. Democrats believe that Congress must do its job and rein in ICE abuses by requiring immigration agents to simply follow the same rules as local police. While Republicans claim the DHS shutdown is putting us at risk, the reality is this administration has engaged in mass layoffs of career national security officials and diverted many others from protecting the homeland of the president's with the president's mass deportation campaign. This is all while Secretary Noem is sitting on an unprecedented amount of appropriated funds, more than the United States Marine Corps. The Republicans in Congress gave her this and gave her virtual decision-making power in terms of the execution of policies. And she is spending nearly $300 million on a fleet of luxury private jets so she can travel in style. Really? Secretary Noem has repeatedly claimed that the department is arresting the, quote, worst of the worst and making American cities safe. In fact, less than 14% of immigrants arrested during Trump's first year back in office had charges or convictions for violent criminal offenses. Less than 14%, 1 out of 7. Immigration agents arrive in cities without consulting local law enforcement. They roam the streets in paramilitary gear and arrest and detain people based on the color of their skin, their accents, and the language they speak, the infamous Kavanaugh stops. That is not a public safety operation. That is a paramilitary occupation. And Secretary Noem has made excessive force the department's default position. In my home state of Illinois, during the so-called Operation Midway Blitz, agents violently attacked, tackled, arrested, and detained immigrants and citizens. They conducted a military-style raid on an apartment complex, kicking down doors and zip-tying children. A Border Patrol agent shot an American citizen, Miramar Martinez, multiple times, 5 times. She miraculously survived. After the incident, the agent bragged on the internet, 5 shots, 7 holes. And this administration didn't just shoot her 5 times. They called her a domestic terrorist, tried to prosecute her on trumped-up charges that were ultimately withdrawn, and fought the public release of evidence in her case. In Minnesota, your agents shot and killed Renee Good and Alex Preddy, 2 American citizens. And as their families struggle with these horrible tragedies, they had to fight baseless accusations of domestic terrorism from Secretary Noem, the head of the agency responsible for their loved one's death. The department has also translated the president's racist attacks into immigration policy. President Trump has repeatedly called Somali immigrants, and I quote, garbage, and said that he doesn't want immigrants from what he calls, and I'm going to clean this up, S-hole countries. I heard him say that in the Oval Office repeatedly. Secretary Noem responded to what she called, quote, a full travel ban on every damn country that's been flooding our nation with killers, leeches, and entitlement junkies. It just so happens that every country covered by the Trump-Noem ban has a majority non-white population. Earlier this month, the Trump administration deployed Border Czar Tom Homan to Minneapolis, supposedly to end Operation Metro Surge. The president is reading his sinking poll numbers and finally recognized the American people are sick and tired and fed up with this heavily armed, masked secret police agents causing chaos in our cities. But the reality is the administration has not backed down from Stephen Miller's 3,000 person a day arrest quota. Meeting this quota is impossible without continuing indiscriminate enforcement. There simply are not enough of the so-called worst of the worst to do it. ICE agents are even arresting trafficking survivors like Luna, who was abused for years. In February 2025, the Trump DHS found Luna's application for a trafficking visa was bona fide. Today, Luna is still in detention. DHS has launched a cruel scheme to purchase massive warehouses for detaining immigrants, some designed to hold 8,000 people. To put that in perspective, our largest federal prison holds 4,000. Listen to what the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops said about this. The thought of holding thousands of families in massive warehouses should challenge the conscience of every American. Whatever their immigration status, these are human beings created in the image and likeness of God, and this is a moral inflection point for our country. Even with tens of billions of dollars at your disposal, the administration already cannot meet the basic needs of the 65,000 people currently in immigration detention. Detained individuals, including children and infants, are subject to abusive conditions and inadequate medical care. This includes Liam Ramos, the 5-year-old arrested with his father in Minnesota, who became ill in detention, and Amalia, an 18-month-old baby who became so sick with a respiratory illness she was hospitalized for 10 days, only to be returned to detention and denied medication. We have also seen an unprecedented number of deaths in ICE custody. 7 people died last December alone. 9 have died this year. This includes Geraldo Lunas Campos, who was choked to death by guards. This avoidable tragedy was classified as a homicide by the county medical examiner. The Department of Homeland Security's response? Try and deport the witnesses as quickly as possible. Secretary Noem and her rogue immigration agents seem to believe they are above the law and accountable only to the president and Stephen Miller's evil vision of a hateful America. Chief Judge Patrick Schultz of Minnesota, a Republican appointee, found that ICE violated at least 96 court orders in Minnesota in January, the month of January alone, which he said was, quote, likely more than some federal agencies have violated in their entire existence. And hundreds of federal judges have ruled more than 4,440 times that ICE is detaining immigrants illegally. That is an extraordinary rebuke from the federal bench. It hasn't stopped there. This department has trampled on the Fourth Amendment, forcibly entering private homes and businesses without judicial warrant. The Trump administration has also punished individuals for exercising their rights to free speech and peaceful protests under the First Amendment. They revoked a student's visa for writing an op-ed in America. In America. They have subpoenaed social media companies for information on Americans who have criticized ICE. ICE agents have found the addresses of peaceful protesters and showed up their homes to intimidate them. Now the administration is even threatening to interfere with our elections. President Trump has suggested that the federal government should nationalize elections. Top Trump ally Steve Bannon recently said, "We're going to have ICE surround the polls. We'll never again allow an election to be stolen," end of quote. Secretary Noem went further, and this is what you said, and I quote, "Make sure that we have the right people voting, electing the right leaders to head this country." And the administration has threatened immigration enforcement surges if state officials do not turn over their voter rolls and raided an election office in one swing county. We must ask, what is President Trump's end game for this reign of state-sponsored violence against America's own citizens? History teaches us that immigrants are the first target when an authoritarian regime seeks to erode civil rights and consolidate power. But immigrants are never the last target. And we know that Donald Trump does not respect the constitutional rights of any American, regardless of party. Secretary Noem, this is the first time we met. I've been on this committee for more than 2 decades. I worked with every one of your predecessors of both political parties. I tried to meet with you before and after your confirmation, but you refused every request. I want to be clear, and you should know this. No official on this side of the rostrum or the other is above the law. You have no right to deploy immigrant agents as a paramilitary force in American cities. You swore an oath to uphold the Constitution. You have an obligation to answer questions posed by the member of this committee so that meaningful accountability can begin for the terror we are witnessing in America every day.